This is the Conservative Czar, December 6, 2012. I'm going to try something a little new today, and I might try it for a few days. I'm going to give the headlines that might be of interest to conservatives and talk about today's 6 items. The first item is what I consider to be the most important political news today, and it's not news today, it's been going on for 3 or 4 days, and that is this threat that Obama is making about the debt ceiling limit. Now, I've done a video which talks about the debt ceiling limit, which is the every so often Congress has to approve to increase the amount of borrowing the federal government can have, and there's a defined limit to the amount of borrowing. And this didn't used to be big news because we didn't have that much deficits. But with the deficits this big, it is huge, and it is the big giant hammer that conservatives have in the House of Representatives. It's a huge power, and Obama wants to take that power away. And he's made it part of the fiscal cliff, saying that I will not accept anything that the Republicans have to put forward unless we have a long-term deal on the debt ceiling. So I don't have to worry about this, every 6 months or year or whatever, and I can spend whatever I want. And that's a huge deal, and it's a huge deal because Obama is making the threat part of the fiscal cliff negotiations. And if you read the Bob Woodward book about the last big debt ceiling increase and the machinations that went on there, Obama, he's a tough guy. And when he lays down these threats, he will back those threats up to the hilt. So this is a very, very serious thing that Obama is making the debt ceiling part of the fiscal cliff. He wants it eliminated. He doesn't want it to be in the hands of Congress, and he's threatening not to consider any negotiations. And this gets back to the point that the only thing that the Republicans can do in Congress is to use the debt ceiling limit and say to the president and the country, we will compromise in a reasonable manner, but if we go off the fiscal cliff, we're not going to increase the debt ceiling. And that's it. And you live with it. And as I said before, the wailing would be unbelievable. The cries, it would be every liberal in the country. Oprah, I said this before, Oprah would just break down in tears. It would be an unrelenting assault on the conservatives in the House of Representatives. But there's nothing they could do about it, really, and it's 2 years before congressional elections. And one thing it would show the country that the Republicans in the House could stand up for something. Second big issue of the day is a story about Jim DeMint leaving the Senate. He's a United States Senator now. He is going to resign and take the lead at the Heritage Institute. Now, the Heritage Institute is a long-time conservative think tank. It's more of an economic think tank. It doesn't get into the social issues, and that's the rub. Jim DeMint is a good pro-life senator, but by joining the Heritage Institute, he's going to have a huge bully pulpit on economic issues. And the other thing I want to caution people about in this thing is that Jim DeMint, he is one of the 5 or 6 most powerful people in the conservative movement who can lead us into a direction of independence, whether it be independence fighting the Republican establishment within the Republican Party or a third party. He's one of the a handful of people who can pull that off. But Jim DeMint, you got to keep an eye on him because he has a checkered past. And the big checker in his past is his support of Mitt Romney in 2008. He supported Mitt Romney early in 2008. And a quid pro quo deal, Romney gave him a whole bunch of money in his run for re-election for Senate. He sold out pretty darn quick. That's not that far long ago. Keep an eye on Jim DeMint. I don't know if you just got to keep an eye on him. And again, this is good for economic conservatives. It's not necessarily good for traditional conservatives who want more discussion about the social issues defending Christian values. But DeMint, this is a big move, big deal that DeMint goes to heritage. It enhances heritage, enhances DeMint. He's a power to be reckoned with. The third issue I want to talk about is the poll that came out that 53% of the public polled said that they think the Democrats are the people who will best handle the fiscal cliff. And this is all, it's got a lot of press, and people are, supporting the Democrats, and Republicans are, I think the Republicans only had 36% or something. It was a big difference. Let's set this by this. This tells us nothing, except for one thing: how the mainstream media, pro-Democrat, just supporting everything the Democrats say, influences public opinion. This poll is caused by the mainstream media. It highlights why we have to deal with the mainstream media almost before we can move on to other things. And we got to do it. And I think there was one line the other day by Ted Cruz out of Texas, a senator. And one of the things he said is I can't for the life of me understand why Republican candidates or the Republican Party participates in a debate where the moderator is George Stephanopoulos. And that's a breath of fresh air on this topic. But the poll is a result of the mainstream media and the mainstream media's manipulation of the issues surrounding everything, but particularly the fiscal cliff. I want to switch gears now to talk about foreign policy for a little bit. Things are happening, very, very serious things are happening around the world, but almost all of them are in the Middle East. 3 pieces of news in Egypt. For the first time since this recent Morsi takeover of power in Egypt and the protests in the street, the military has shown its face. The military came out to defend the presidential palace where Morsi had to, remember, there was a protest, kind of got out of hand. Morsi fled the palace, and the military came in and stepped in between the protesters and the presidential palace, in effect defending the presidential palace. Now, there is no more important piece of news on a daily basis right now than in Egypt. As this goes, so goes the war in the Middle East, the inevitable war in the Middle East that is going to occur. It is a critical issue. And I've said before, the key here is, what is the military going to do? They have stayed out of this recent battle by moving in at first blush, and they've come in to defend the Muslim Brotherhood. But it puts them in a position outside the palace. If they wanted to have a coup, they could have a coup. The only thing that is going to stop the radical Muslims taking Egypt from here until the inevitable war in the Middle East is the Egyptian military. And so this is very important. This is the first time they've taken a step. It's hard to tell where they're going, but they're in it now. And watch this story. It is about war and peace in the Middle East. It's about war in the world. And Egypt is a key piece. The next story I wanted to talk about is very much related. There have been a whole bunch of stories. Some people are saying they see the inevitability of the end game in Syria, where Assad is brought down and the rebels take power. I don't know. This is 95% disastrous for the United States. It's hard to tell exactly what's going to happen after the rebels win, but 95% chance that it's going to be worse guys than Assad. And if Egypt continues with a Muslim Brotherhood takeover, and part of the dominoes that have to be in place is a radicalized Syria, a Syria that is run by Sharia law, run by the radical Islamists. In my opinion, 95% chance that we're going to have a radical Islamic state in Syria. That's another domino there. We have Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood, consolidating power as we speak in Egypt, and we have the Syrian rebels which are inevitably going to be Islamist radicals taking over Syria. This is the northern border of Israel and the western border of Israel, in effect, taken over by radical Muslims where there weren't radical Muslims 2 years ago. It's a failure of the Obama-Clinton foreign policy and in the inevitability of a Mideast war of serious consequences. Egypt and Syria are falling into place for that inevitable, disastrous consequence. The last thing I want to talk about is this, again in foreign policy and again in the region, is the president of Afghanistan, Karzai, has come out attacking the United States, blaming the United States for the violence and corruption in his country. And, some of this is probably theater. Karzai, most likely, as soon as the United States leaves, he's going to get out of the country because he knows if he sticks around, he's going to get killed. And that's it, because we're going to lose that war. The Taliban are going to take over. It's just a matter of time. All Karzai is trying to do is position something, do last gasp efforts to try to gain popular support by attacking the United States, because the general population of Afghanistan hates the United States. And they're going to join the Taliban to kick remnants of the United States out when we withdraw. One interesting part about this is, and it goes back again to Iraq, in the Obama's withdrawal from Iraq. In the plans for withdrawal from Iraq was the plans that there would be a security agreement, an arrangement made between the Iraqis and the United States to keep a presence in Iraq. That agreement fell totally apart, and the United States, in effect, got kicked out. In Afghanistan, the same thing is happening. Karzai knows that he can't have his security. He cannot live. He and his family will be murdered if he has a security agreement with the United States. So that whole idea that we're gonna be able to leave Afghanistan with dignity is a ridiculous idea. There is a chance, I'd say maybe a 20% chance, that we will end up with a peace treaty with the Taliban that will hold for 2 or 3 years while the United States really gets out and the Taliban will come and take over and kill them all then. But we're going to lose the war in Afghanistan. Karzai is just trying to cover himself. That war is inevitably lost. It's a disaster. That's it for December 6th, 2012. This is the Conservative Czar. See you next time.